Why would a good God, a loving God, allow such suffering in the world? It's one of the hardest questions people ask. And not just because it's deep or philosophical, but because behind this question is often pain. You see, this question becomes deeply personal because at some point, we're all going to find ourselves in pain. We're all going to experience hurt and loss and heartbreak. And maybe that's where you are right now. Maybe you're walking through something painful. You're carrying something heavy, or somebody around you is hurting, and you're left wondering how to make sense of it all. You see, this is a question that I've wrestled with personally, and I've sat with more people than I can count who have asked this in moments of heartbreak. And it's one thing to talk about suffering in theory, it's another thing when you experience it. And so in this video, I want to look at this question and not just answer with cliches or easy fixes, but with honesty, with faith, and with the kind of hope that can help you stand up in the most difficult seasons of life. Because the Bible, it doesn't avoid the question of suffering. In fact, it speaks right into it. Now, here's what I've noticed. When someone is suffering, the answers that are given most often make things worse. Now, people mean well, but here's what we often hear. You just need to have more faith. God is testing you. You're suffering because of your sin. Everything happens for a reason. And the problem is, not only are these responses often not helpful, they're not even biblical. Jesus never promised us a pain-free life. In fact, he said the opposite. He told us in this world, you will have trouble. You see, the Bible, it doesn't give us a formula for avoiding suffering or a guarantee that we'll understand it. I love how Philip Yancey puts it. He says this, virtually every passage on suffering in the New Testament deflects the emphasis from cause to response. Although we cannot grasp the master plan of the universe, we can nevertheless respond in two important ways. First, we can find meaning in the midst of suffering. And second, we can offer real and practical help to those in need. So instead of pretending that there's a neat answer to all of this, I want to walk with you through it instead. Through what the Bible actually says, through wisdom from others who have walked through the fire have to say, and most of all, I want to help you see God through it all. Because if we can't trust God in our suffering, we're never going to be able to fully trust Him at all. And I think our suffering can actually bring us closer to God if we let it. And here's the good news. God doesn't shut us down when we ask tough questions. In fact, the Bible is full of people crying out in confusion and pain. David said, "Oh Lord, why do you stand far off?" Job said, "Why do you hide your face from me?" And Jesus on the cross said, my God, why have you forsaken me?" You see, God doesn't silence those voices. He doesn't silence those questions. He welcomes them in. And I think a lot of our struggle with suffering, it comes down to this, our perspective. We assume that if we were in charge, we wouldn't allow pain. That if God were good, He would run the world the way we think He should. But C.S. Lewis challenges this perspective. He says this, the problem of reconciling human suffering with the existence of a God who loves is only insolvable so long as we attach a trivial meaning to the word love and look on things as if man were the center of them. Man is not the center. God does not exist for the sake of man. Man does not exist for his own sake. We were not made primarily that we may love God, though we were made for that too, but that God may love us. Now that might sting a little bit, but it's true. You are not the center of things. And God's love is not always expressed in our comfort. And this doesn't mean that God is cold, but it does mean that He might be doing something that we can't fully grasp. So the better question might be this. Could God be doing something in our pain, in our suffering, that we don't yet understand, that we can't yet see? Paul writes in 1 Corinthians 13, now we see in a mirror dimly, but then face to face. In other words, you and I, we don't see the full picture yet. We live with limited sight. But God, He doesn't. And maybe, just maybe, he's doing something right now that we can't understand, even if he explained it. And that's not like a cop out response. That's the definition of faith. Faith is trusting in advance what's only going to make sense in reverse. And as a dad to two boys, I think about my kids. There are moments that I have to do things to them that they don't enjoy. They have to go to school. They have to sit in that dentist chair. They have to clean up their room. They have to apologize when they've done something wrong. They have to sit in timeout. And to them, some of those things might seem cruel. But I'm not doing them because I hate them. I'm actually doing them because I love them. And it's not a perfect analogy, but I think it's a glimpse. God doesn't delight in our pain, but he sees something in it that we can't. And this is what sets Christianity apart from every other belief system. In our pain, God doesn't stay far off. He doesn't stay removed from our suffering. He doesn't simply send down rules or offer advice from a distance. No, he steps into our story, into our pain, into our mess. He becomes Emmanuel, God with us. And that's a name that shows up a lot around Christmas, but it's not just seasonal theology. It's a foundational truth of the gospel. When Jesus was born, Matthew quotes the prophet Isaiah, "The virgin will conceive and give birth to a son, and they will call him Emmanuel," meaning God with us. That's the kind of God we follow. Not one who watches from above, but one who draws close to us in our brokenness and in our grief. I love how Eugene Peterson paraphrases John 1:14. He says, "The Word became flesh and blood and moved into the neighborhood." And listen, Jesus didn't move into just any neighborhood. He was born in a land that was ruled by a tyrant king. He entered a world of Roman opposition, of religious corruption, and of brutal suffering, a place with a broken past, a grieving present, and an uncertain future. He was born under a government that massacred babies. That's the neighborhood he chose to move into. And maybe you can relate. Maybe your neighborhood right now feels heavy, feels like you're surrounded by anxiety, by loss, depression, or trauma. Maybe it feels like God wouldn't possibly move into your neighborhood. But that's where Emmanuel enters. Not in a sanitized, perfect neighborhood, but into a suffering neighborhood. As Philip Yancey writes, he says, "For whatever reason, God has chosen to respond to the human predicament not by waving a magic wand to make evil and suffering disappear, but by absorbing it in a person. In the face of suffering, words do not suffice. We need something more. The Word became flesh, actual living proof that God has not abandoned us. As Dietrich Bonhoeffer put it, only a suffering God can help." That's the gospel. Not a memo, but a person. Not a God who watches from a distance, but a God who shows up. So, back to our original question, why does God allow suffering? We might not be able to get a full answer on this side of eternity. But I think that real comfort isn't found in an explanation. It's found in a person. Jesus doesn't explain our pain, but he joins us in it. He knows what it's like to be abandoned, to be misunderstood, to be crushed. He wept, he bled, he cried out. So when you do the same, you're not alone. That's what Emmanuel means. It means he's with us still, even now. So maybe in your pain, it's not the end of your story. Maybe it's the beginning of something new. A deeper faith, a greater dependence, a more honest walk with God. But I don't want you to miss this. Whatever you're going through right now, whatever you will go through in the future, whatever weight that you're carrying, God is with you through it all. So go to him. Let him bring you comfort. Let him restore your soul. And in part 2 of this series, we're going to look at what the Bible says about suffering and what it doesn't say. But for now, I want you to hold on to this. You're not forgotten. You're not alone. God is with you right here, right now. And that might be what you need more than anything else. And if you're walking through pain, And if you want a more personal way to process this with God, check out my free devotional, God in the Pain. You can download it right now using the link in the description below. And if this video helped you, leave a comment and subscribe so that we can keep walking through this together. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.